just start now with the first speaker, is Nicolas Freitag. Nicolas is a very experienced engineer, graduated from the École Nationale des Ponts et Chaussées, but some years ago. He spent 18 years in Terre Armée. He was very much involved in the technical department, and he was managing the technical department at Terre Armée. And since 2019, he is managing a business zone in Terre Armée, Europe, from UK to Turkey. So give a big round of applause to Nicolas.
Thank you, Serge. You did not mention that I was your trainee at old LCPC some years ago also. Thank you. The button, yeah. Sorry for that. I'm also very intimidated because there are many of my teachers of that time in the room. And I prepared these slides a little bit in a rush, but anyway, let's have a little bit of fun. This story starts on the beach. In the late 50s, early 60s, a young, yet-to-be engineer, Henri Vidal, was fascinated by the result he would get by mixing sand and pine needles, and was doing it again and again, sometimes with maybe some issues with other users of the beach, but somewhere at the limit between the sun and shadow, he had this vision, intuition that mixing a granular material with reinforcement could lead to a new material, a new construction material. So after the beach, he went back to work. He started his career as engineer, and he also spent a lot of his time in the late 50s, early 60s, spending, I guess, his evenings and weekends playing now not with pine needles, but with newspapers. And I have found in our archives, by moving the archives from one place to the other, sometimes you find the little treasures. And I found last year, I found a box, and inside the box, I found these pieces of newspapers that are consciously archived on paper with some hand notes. And this is an example of the first failure of a reinforced earth wall at the facing due to an excess of tension at the face. And it is, in French, à casser sans glissement sous mon poids total en sautillant sur la planchette de 15 cm x 20 cm. So in English, I was jumping on a little wooden plank on top of this reinforced structure, and it broke at the facing, and this is the result. Well, this is a fantastic story. I think it is this intuition and this passion about this will to make something concrete out of a vision, and it led to, after all these developments, to a year which is this year 60th anniversary. So it's the 250th anniversary of that we are celebrating with the publication of Coulomb. It's also the 60th anniversary of this publication, of the two publications by Henri Vidal this year, filing of the patent, initial patent, where I'm going to not going to read it, but he says, I invented a new material which, on the contrary of concrete, does not need any glue to provide cohesion to granular material. And with that, we are going to do fantastic things for many different cases, especially in the infrastructure domain. That's introduction, it's not the claims. And he also, at the same time, published. That's extracts from the patent. Sorry for the formatting. So he said it's a construction material with an artificial anisotropic cohesion provided by tensile reinforcement interaction with the soil by friction. Coulomb is not far. And you see these little wedges on figure 1. So it's yeah, that's the fundamental thing to understand is that the beginning is the vision of a new construction material, and after comes the technological development, industrialization, establishment of venture of a company in 1968, and then an international success story with now subsidiaries in most places, most countries, in many countries around the world, and activities typically in maybe every year 50, 60 different countries where reinforced earth walls are built from our brand. And of course, there are also competitors and emulation. So in 1963, it's also the publication of kind of thick monography with nice illustrations, and where Vidal explains the theoretical understanding, his theoretical understanding of his material, and also many different applications, technological applications. For example, he writes that the reinforcement can be made of steel or can be made of textile. In 1963, some people think that invention of geosynthetics is in the 70s, but it's already in his vision at the early stage. Also, he is explaining the stability of the structure by, in this case, it's water pressure, but it could be earth pressure. You see an earth pressure diagram or water pressure diagram, and a failure line, and he's devising on the contribution of the reinforcement to the stability of the soil mass. So, this is not a theoretical presentation, but just from the first concept of, let's say, limit equilibrium justification of the stability of this composite material, then there were lots of instrumented structures to understand better how it works. I mean, laboratory tests, but also full-scale instrumented structures. Later on, also numerical models, and you have to recognize that while the limit equilibrium method is a filter to justify with some level of safety by like we heard this morning from the upper boundary approach, we can approach the safety level of ULS. There is also we need also to take into account the construction history and the way the stress field and the tension in the reinforcement is generated when you build these structures from bottom to top. And so this instrumenting these structures has been very key to this understanding and led to some discoveries. For example, and we were talking this morning about justification of the facing of soil nail structures. Same thing for reinforced field structures. There is an effect, there is a tension at the connection with the facing, and this tension is not the maximum tension of the reinforcement, which is a bit further away, meaning that the shear stresses along the reinforcement are reversed from both sides of this theoretical line of maximum tension. Why is that? It's because you would not see that if you don't take into account some level of deformation. The facing, depending on its flexibility, the extensibility of the connections also creates a displacement, a relative displacement, soil reinforcement, which is inverse in this what we call active zone. Well, I'm not going to go too much into detail, but typically this is the way I call it the Schlosser method, which is fundamental and still used in many codes around the world. It's a local equilibrium method, which balances the local horizontal earth pressure at the location of this maximum tension line with the long-term braking capacity, resistance of the reinforcement, and the pull-out capacity at the back of the line. The pull-out capacity is, thanks to Newton and Coulomb, a matter of weight of soil on top and of interaction coefficient. The next very important increment in the technology has been really the development of this steel reinforcement with ribs. Before that, they were smooth, and they needed to be wide to resist the pull-out. And with these ribs, there is you have on the right-hand side, it's a sketch. You imagine you are facing these reinforcement strips, you pull them out, and you generate in a well-compacted and non-uniform granular material some dilatancy, which turns into arching effect and concentration of vertical stress on both sides, on both faces of the strips. So you have an apparent friction coefficient or pull-out capacity, which is much higher than the friction angle of the soil, and this has allowed to make to stay economical while making narrower reinforcement but thicker for longer durability in the long run. Today, there are many different technologies used by the different actors on the market. Steel strips, steel ladders, double twisted wire mesh, can be galvanized, can be sometimes also covered with some level of some polymers, and also, of course, geosynthetics reinforcement in the shape of flexible strips. Geostrips is the name, or geogrids with different ways of manufacturing those. They are typically associated with a variety of facings. You have wire mesh with stone backing on the top left, steep slopes with vegetation on the top right, a variation on the famous concrete panel on the bottom left, and modular block walls on the right bottom. This is where there are differences in the systems, in the way the connection is made between the reinforcement and the type of facing, and this is a very important point, while not really linked with Coulomb this time. In terms of application, indeed, what is fantastic in the story of reinforced earth is that many of the applications have been developed in the early stage because this was something new. So there was a lot of excitement and a lot of trial, and maybe it's a period where there was more self-confidence on the side of the owners to try new things and to look at and to make and to push for innovation, which is probably more difficult now when the responsibilities are more spread around. But anyway, among this is just a few examples of the main applications of reinforced field structures. Nearly 30-meter high wall for access to a primary crusher in a mine in Peru, in very highly seismic area. On the top center, there is this is very interesting. In fact, we are on very soft soils, and so this it's an extension of an airport. So the airport is typically developed on an elevated plateau, but if you want to extend it, you cannot have the aircraft going down, or it needs to be leveled. So they needed to backfill a wide area, but it's on soft soil. So they needed to put some rigid inclusions for soil improvement, and that led to the choice to use large quantities of retaining walls in order to optimize the cost of the overall scheme, because they did not need to make soil improvement below the slope. On the right-hand side at the top, we are very proud of that. We have delivered a few structures which are under the high-speed line between Tours and Bordeaux, with commercial speeds of 320 kilometers and test speed 352. We went through a very demanding approval process, and its structure has been monitored with dynamic sensors to look at the effect of the trains passing on the structure. There is a very good behavior. These structures are ductile, and there is no stress concentration because the facing is also very articulated in a way. This structure at the bottom left, it's a rehabilitation of a failed slope in the north of India, in Himalayas. It's 100 meters high. It's a combination of soil anchors, soil nailing, and reinforced fill connected to the back face. And we are very proud of this application, which is extremely impressive. About 3 years of work. Avalanche protection barrier. We do quite a bit in Iceland in particular. Very impressive structures. And more, let's say, not less impressive, but quite interesting little application. Back-to-back wall on the crest of Earth's dams to increase the capacity, or at least to guide the water in terms of overflow to spillway. Sometimes these dams have been made without a proper spillway, and to reduce the risk in case of flood. Let's say it's not a structure which is constantly under water pressure. It could be with the proper waterproofing, but it's just to guide the water to the spillway. I was talking about the capacity of these reinforced field structures to cope with vibrations, and let's talk about high seismic impact. Terre Armée Reinforced Earth has been an incredible success in Japan. We have some licenses since we are going to celebrate next year the 50th anniversary of the licenses. And they have built, I would say, tens of thousands of structures over the years, sometimes very small, sometimes larger. And they are very rigorous in investigating the structures after, say, a major seismic event. And after the very large Tohoku earthquake in 2011, which was followed by a significant tsunami, they investigated the Terre Armée structures around. And they have a ranking system from structures that show absolutely no visible damage, visible, I say, because it's visual inspection, to structures that have collapsed completely. So it's the rank 6 in red. So they have this ranking system with different levels of damage, and it is amazing to see that rank 1 and 2 structures that may show sometimes a little bit of deformation, but need no intervention. These account for 98% of the structures they investigated. They investigated more than 1,400 walls. It's a significant work. And only 4 structures were completely destroyed. If I remember well, a couple of them were washed away by the tsunami. One I don't remember, and another one was moved by 7 meters due to liquefaction of the foundation soil. It moved as a monolith. Another application that we have investigated recently is to see how we could provide an efficient, optimized protective band for rockfall. The earth bands are the solution for high energy impact when the nets and barriers made of netted steel are not efficient. But there is an issue of right of way, of land usage using gentle slopes. So it's known to use steep slopes, like on the left-hand side. But so far there has been very, very few examples of vertical structures back to back to reduce the footprint. While it has some advantages because you of course reduce the footprint, but you also put more mass at the top. And we have done through about 10 years of collaboration with Université Gustave Eiffel. We have developed, we have through different steps, we have developed one solution which consists in making a regular back-to-back structure. So you see these geostrips that connect the two faces like a shoelace, if you want. And we have added some lateral geogrids, high strength, to make a kind of to connect the laterally the structure. And if it works, yeah, that's the slow motion of the full-scale test. So the structure is 6 meters high, 3.3 meters wide. The impact is 5 megajoule, which is indeed 12 tons at 100 kilometers an hour. The block was arrested. The structure deformed significantly, but the block was arrested. And the structure was did not fail and was stabilized by this additional reinforcement, which particularly on the opposite side helped to keep the structure in one piece. So we are very proud of that, and we think it should be more considered for rockfall protection. We see all the events in the Alps, etc. With the rising of the Strizdo level, there is clearly a need for protecting our assets. That's all for now. Thank you very much for your attention.